East London is a place of contrasts. Once an industrial hub, it was marked by factories, shipyards, and working-class communities. Today, it is a melting pot of cultures, gentrification, and booming creative industries. But underneath this rapid transformation lies a darker history, a story of drugs, violence, and crime that earned East London the grim title of Europe's cocaine capital. How did this come to be? How did East London, a region often overshadowed by its West End and financial districts, become the center of one of the largest drug markets on the continent? This is a deep dive into a story of ambition, corruption, and street warfare that shaped an entire generation. The story begins in the 1980s. Britain was undergoing major economic changes. The decline of traditional industries left large swaths of East London unemployed and impoverished. Dock workers lost their jobs as containerization transformed shipping. Communities that once thrived on manual labor faced bleak prospects. In this vacuum of opportunity, crime found fertile ground. At the same time, the global cocaine trade was expanding. Once an elite drug, cocaine became cheaper and more accessible. South American cartels ramped up production and distribution networks across Europe, and East London's docks, though not as busy as before, still offered entry points for shipments. Early on, small-time dealers operated in estates and markets, selling to local users. But by the 1990s, these small operations began to link up with larger criminal organizations. East London's geographic position made it a perfect hub. It was close to the continent, with easy road and rail connections, and large port facilities in Tilbury and Felixstowe just a short drive away. One of the earliest known gangs to exploit this was the Adams family, based in Hackney and Tower Hamlets. They established networks for importing and distributing cocaine. Their methods were brutal, territory was protected fiercely, and violence was common. But what made them stand out was their ability to blend criminal enterprise with legitimate business. They invested in nightclubs, restaurants, and import-export companies as fronts for money laundering. During the late 1990s and early 2000s, East London saw the rise of multiple organized crime groups, each fighting for control of the lucrative cocaine market. Gangs such as the Hackney Boys, the Bethnal Green Crew, and the Tower Hamlets Syndicate became household names among law enforcement and locals alike. Turf wars erupted. Drive-by shootings, stabbings, and bombings became terrifyingly common. These gangs were no longer just street dealers. They operated like businesses. They had hierarchies, enforcers, accountants, and lawyers. They used encrypted communication devices to evade police surveillance and employed complex money laundering schemes involving offshore accounts and cryptocurrency. It was a new kind of criminal sophistication. One infamous example of this criminal evolution is the story of Curtis Warren, once dubbed Britain's richest drug lord. Born in Liverpool, but active across England, Warren controlled vast quantities of cocaine smuggled through East London. His operations included bribing port officials and corrupting customs agents to ensure shipments went unchecked. Warren's empire stretched into Europe and even the Americas. While he was eventually imprisoned, his network influenced the market long after. The explosion of cocaine in East London was also tied to social factors. Areas like Hackney, Tower Hamlets, Newham, and Waltham Forest were home to large immigrant communities, many facing poverty and marginalization. Young men with few prospects saw gangs as a way to make money and gain respect. The lure of easy cash was powerful, and once involved, getting out was difficult. The culture around cocaine consumption also changed. In the 1980s, cocaine was a party drug associated with the rich and famous. By the 2000s, it had become more widespread, infiltrating clubs, bars, and even schools in East London. The demand skyrocketed, fueling more imports and violence. As the market expanded, so did the violence. Feuds between gangs were often settled in the streets with firearms. Between 2010 and 2018, London saw one of its deadliest periods for gang violence in decades, with East London at the epicenter. Police recorded dozens of shootings and stabbings linked directly to cocaine turf wars. Innocent bystanders were sometimes caught in the crossfire, escalating public fear and outrage. Law enforcement responded with major operations. The Metropolitan Police launched initiatives like Operation Trident and Operation Scepter to combat gun crime and gang violence. Special units targeted drug distribution chains, arrested key players, and seized tons of cocaine shipments. But the criminals adapted quickly, using new technology and changing tactics to stay ahead. One particularly shocking discovery came in 2013 when police uncovered a massive cocaine processing lab in East London. The facility, disguised behind a legitimate warehouse, was capable of producing hundreds of kilograms of pure cocaine per month. The drugs were then distributed across the UK and exported to Europe. This was evidence of how deeply organized crime had embedded itself in the area. Corruption played a significant role as well. Several investigations revealed that some port workers, customs officers, and even local officials were bribed or intimidated into facilitating smuggling operations. This corruption allowed cocaine to flow with relative ease compared to other European ports, cementing East London's position as a cocaine hub. the economic impact was staggering. Estimates suggest that billions of pounds worth of cocaine passed through East London each year at the height of the trade. This created a parallel economy, benefiting some but devastating many communities. Addiction rates increased, crime rates soared, and entire neighborhoods were destabilized. Yet, the story is not just about crime and violence. There are signs of resilience and hope. Community groups, charities, and local councils have invested heavily in prevention and rehabilitation programs. Outreach workers engage with vulnerable youth, offering alternatives to gang life. Schools run educational campaigns highlighting the dangers of drugs and crime. Police, community partnerships aim to rebuild trust and improve safety. One of the most effective strategies has been targeting the supply chain rather than just street-level dealers. By disrupting import routes, seizing shipments, and prosecuting major traffickers, law enforcement has managed to reduce availability. But this fight is ongoing. The cartel networks are powerful and adaptive. Social media also played a complex role. On one hand, it was a tool for criminals to boast, intimidate rivals, and coordinate deals. On the other, it allowed communities and authorities to expose crimes and spread awareness. Some former gang members have even turned to platforms like YouTube and Instagram to tell their stories and warn others away from the life. The COVID-19 pandemic added a new layer of challenge. Lockdowns disrupted supply chains temporarily, but also created opportunities for new players to emerge. The economic hardships caused by the pandemic increased vulnerability, making prevention efforts even more critical. Today, East London's reputation as the cocaine capital of Europe is both a warning and a call to action. It highlights what happens when economic inequality, social neglect, and organized crime converge. It shows the devastating consequences when communities are left behind. The question remains, what is the future of East London? Will continued investment in education, jobs, and social services turn the tide? Can law enforcement keep pace with the evolving tactics of traffickers? Will the voices of communities rise louder than the gunshots in the streets? One thing is certain, the story of East London's cocaine trade is far from over, but it is a story that must be told, understood, and confronted if change is to come.